Hi everybody. In this practice, you will implement the whole change synchronization cycle. You will configure a primary extract process, a data pump process, and a replicate process. Those processes will be responsible for the change synchronization from the source database to the target database. You will also configure and execute a Golden Gate initial load process. When you plan for implementing a replication configuration with Oracle Golden Gate, you should find a way to avoid data overlap or data loss between the initial load and the data change synchronization. To handle this problem, you normally have three options. With option number 1, you can simply stop the application from making changes on the source database and then perform the initial load. When the initial load is finished, you execute the change synchronization and then allow the applications to resume their normal operation. This is a safe approach, but it includes application downtime, which is sometimes not possible for mission-critical applications. With option number 2, you start the initial load, and after it finishes, you make the replicate start applying the changes exactly after the last timestamp point applied by the initial load. I personally like this approach because it doesn't include any application downtime. With option number 3, the primary extract and the initial load are running in the same time. When the initial load finishes, the replicate starts applying whatever data it finds in the trail files. Of course, some data conflict will happen because some data must be already applied by the initial load. That's why the replicate will be configured in a way to ignore the conflicts, as you learned already in the previous lecture. With this approach, you keep eye on the conflicts, and in theory, as time goes on, it eventually disappears. I don't personally like this approach, but still it could work fine in some cases, and it is well documented in Oracle Golden Gate documentation. You will implement the first approach in this practice. You will implement the second option solution in the next practice. This practice assumes that you have implemented the previous practice. Therefore, the direct load, initial load, extract, and replicate tasks are already configured on the virtual appliances. Actually, all the practices in this course are cumulative. Each practice assumes that all the previous practices have been implemented. So please, to avoid any unexpected results, do not skip any practice. As I described earlier, your plan in implementing the change synchronization in this practice will be as follows. Make the source dataset read-only, execute the initial load, run the primary extract and replicate processes, and then set the dataset to read-write status again. Make sure the databases are up and running and accessible through the listener. Truncate the tables in the HRTRG schema in the target database. Make sure the constraints and the triggers in the HRTRG schema are disabled and the indexes are dropped. You have done so in the previous practice. You can refer to the document of the previous practice to obtain a copy of the code to disable the constraints and the triggers in the target database. make the source tables read-only. This is a simulation to stopping the application from making changes on the database. In this section of the practice, you will set up the primary extract process and its trail files. Create the extract parameter file and add the parameters as shown in the practice document to it. Add the extract process using the add extract command. Please be aware that the option begin now doesn't mean that the extract will start after running this command. It just means when you start the extract, begin capturing the changes straight away. The name that I selected for the extract process is ESRV1. I think it's clear that E stands for extract. SRV1 is an indication of the source host name. Add a local extract trail that links the trail to the ESRV1 extract process. In the following steps, you will set up the data pump extract process. Create the data pump extract parameter file. Add the data pump extract group using the commands add extract and add RMT trail, which stands for remote trail files. In the following steps, you will set up the checkpoint table and the replicate process in the target system. On the target system, add the checkpoint table. You will first log into the target database, then execute the command add checkpoint table. As you can see, two tables have been created as a result of add checkpoint table command. Create the replicate parameter file and add the parameters to it as shown in the document. As you already specified the replicated tables in the extract, no need to specify them again in the replicate. Just map all the HR tables to the HRTRG tables as shown in the parameter file code. Add the replicate process group and link it to the trails generated by the data pump process. In this section of the practice, you will use the direct load initial load tasks that you have configured in the previous practice to execute the initial load process. In the source and target systems, start up the manager process if they are down. In the source database, verify that the initial load extract task parameter file is configured. As you see, the command view param displays the parameter file of the extract initial load task. In the target database, verify that the initial load replicate task parameter file is configured. In the source system, start the initial load extract task. Keep monitoring the status of the task till it finishes. Just keep running the info command till it reports the stopped status. Here you go, it is stopped now. Have a look at the report, make sure no error is returned. And confirm that the data has been inserted into the tables. Verify that the initial load was successful by comparing the number of records in the employees table in both databases. In the database DB2, create the indexes of the target dataset. You created the script in the previous practice. Enable the HRTRG constraints that you had disabled before you started the initial load. As you can see, a constraint has been failed when I try to enable it. I'm just running this select statement to confirm that the data is valid. The select statement is showing that we have a country ID in the locations table, but that country ID doesn't exist in the parent table, which is the countries table. And that's why enabling the constraint didn't succeed. Start the extract process and then verify its status. If you use this version of the command info E star, it will give you information about any processes starts with E letter. Now let's start the pump process. The command info ER star means display the status of any extract or replicate processes running in the machine. At the moment, I have two extract processes running. One is the primary extract, and the other one is the data pump extract. Info all is another version of the info command, and it gives you quickly the status of all the processes running in the machine, including the manager process. Look in the trail directory and verify that the local trails are created. As you can see, a file has been created and its name starts with ES. In the target system, start the replicate process and then check its status. Again, I can use the version of the command info R star to know the status of any process which name starts with R. Make the source tables read-write. This simulates making the source database available for read-write operations. Perform basic verification on the configuration. The update that was done in the source database has been replicated successfully to the target database. And that was the last step in this practice. In this practice, you have configured the Oracle Golden Gate change synchronization using disabling the read-write operations during the initial load. In the next practice, you will learn how to configure it without stopping the changes on the source database. I look forward to seeing you over there. Thank you very much.